I think Emmy is sending.
Yeah.
I think Emmy is sending a message saying, "Hi Joe, I will be right up in minutes." I don't know if you got that message.
Oh, is she sending it through Discord or?
Yeah, Discord.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. No, no problem.
Okay.
No problem. We are starting to record, so
Mm-hmm.
she will see. She will get to see what we're doing. So that's fine. So today I want to go through. I want to start talking about InDesign, and we're going to have a new assignment that's more focused on InDesign.
I thought you said you were gonna do gradients before you move to InDesign.
Oh, have I not really talked about gradients in Illustrator? Okay, we can do that real quick. So let's go over gradients real quick. There's basically 4 different types of gradients you can play with in Illustrator. And actually, I'll talk about this in InDesign as well. So I'm going to create a new artboard. Create a new artboard here. And I'll show you how the gradient tool works. So I'm just going to draw out a shape here. And to apply a gradient right away, you have your fill and stroke swatches here in the lower left-hand corner. And then these 3 squares also identify the fill. And this is like the fill color. The one on the right is saying no fill color at all. And the one in the middle is a gradient. So if you click on this, you can bring up the gradient window here that will let you adjust your gradients, and then it will fill that shape with a gradient. That's one way to do it. Also in your swatches.
Is there a password for the meeting?
Oh, who's
Emmy.
Oh, okay, let me see, Emmy. Let me see, password. Got to go back here. I wonder if they're asking for passwords now. Hold on 1 second. I have, let's see. Oh, and hold on, Emmy. Coming to you. Okay. Okay. I just gave her the password. Okay. So 2 ways to get the gradient. So you have right here in between these 3 small squares, the one in the middle is your gradient. Or you can click on swatches, and there's some preset gradients and swatches. So when you use a gradient, you have a gradient palette to adjust the gradient right here. So if you go under window, oops, hold on. Let me make Illustrator bigger. If you go under window in Illustrator, you can go to gradient, and that's where you'll find that gradient palette. And here you can adjust the color. So you can make it huge actually too, which is kind of cool. See how big I can make that. And then you basically adjust the colors by moving these circles on the bottom. So you have the beginning color, and the next circle will be that next color. Stop there. If you double click on a circle, it will bring up the color sliders here, and you can adjust that gradient this way by clicking on the circle. So double clicking on a circle brings up, I think I did it too fast. Oh, it does it 2 ways. So you can double click, it brings it up here, or you can actually adjust it here too. As long as that circle, you see how it has like a white outline? As long as you have that white outline there, that's where you can adjust that. That's kind of an ugly gradient there. And then if you click on this band of color here, you can add new gradient stops. And every time I click, it adds a new one. If I want to get rid of one, I can just drag it off. So dragging away gets rid of it. So when I click on that too, in addition to the actual color, you can change opacity. So you can change the opacity here. And when you change opacity, basically if that gradient is on top of something, like Shirley Temple here, then you can see through that gradient. So you can play with the opacity in addition to the color stops. So there's some other things in here that you can play with too. You can change your type of gradient. So this is where I was talking about there's 4 types of gradients. So this is your standard linear gradient. So this is going in a direction from like point A to point B, let's say. Then you have this type of gradient, which is a circular gradient. So that's, or you call it's called a radial gradient. So you're starting from the center, you're going outwards. So it's a radial gradient. And that works the same way, except you're starting from the center going outwards. And then this final one here, it's a freeform gradient. So if you click on that, it's kind of cool because what this one does is it creates these points within the shape, and adjusting the individual points allows you to change the kind of the influence of where those colors are reaching out from that point that you're creating. And as you create those points, you can increase the size, and then again you can change the color as well. So that's kind of an interesting look. It works with points, and then it works with lines. And if you click on lines, basically allows you to draw these lines out, and then the gradients appear coming out from the line itself. And that's a different way to do it. So you got these 3 options. And then this one last option, I'm going to actually get rid of this. I'm going to draw out a circle. And it looks like Emmy's having trouble getting in. She's having trouble. You sent this to her, Charles. Oh, let me see something real quick. Okay, so hopefully she can get in. Okay, so this 4th type of gradient is this mesh tool. And basically what this does is you add these, as I click on the circle, it adds this type of mesh. And then if I click on like one of these points, I can add a color to these points that I'm adding.
Which one is this?
This is called the gradient mesh tool. So if I click on this, every time I click, it adds another point.
But can you point to where
it's yeah, it's right here underneath the perspective tool.
Okay. Yeah.
The shortcut's U.
Mm-hmm.
So an exercise with this, you see how I kind of get this effect?
Wow.
What you can kind of do with something like this, I'll start over again. So I'll draw this circle, and I'll click on this gradient mesh tool, and I'll click one point there, let's say, and at that point I'll add white. So it's a really kind of nice way to get like dimensional forms. As you click on that part of it, you can add more points, and the shortcut is U. So if I add some additional points here, it kind of causes that area of color to kind of be more focused depending on the points around it. Let me see. So, and then you can adjust these points as well. Oh, that's so weird. You can't get in. Hold on one sec. Yeah, I think it's the same link that you sent, Charles. Yeah, I don't know why she's having trouble. I'm just trying something here for her. But do you guys see how that works? So that's kind of like the fourth type of gradient tool. That Illustrator has for you to play with. Let's see. So yeah, so this tool you can really kind of direct, like let's say I want to have like some sort of like glint or something over here, and I can add another one of these. Kind of control. Basically, you're controlling how that gradient flows. And I think with this too, sometimes it's nice to hide those edges. And then it just makes it a little bit more clear, see what you're doing. You get some weird kind of, sometimes you get weird things happening. So you just got to make sure these lines kind of flow.
So you can only use direct selection tool with this one.
Yeah, because you want to select individual points.
Mm-hmm.
If you select, and you can delete points too if it gets too crazy.
How do you delete?
You just select a point and you hit delete.
Oh, hit delete, okay.
To get back to where you were. So it's like this is a really nice tool to use to get gradients to follow like a certain flow. There's some people who use these to get some like really realistic looking images, just using that gradient mesh tool. So the other thing about gradients though, oops, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna select it and put it aside there, is there's another gradient tool that lets you control the direction of your gradient. So here's another circle with a gradient. So if I click on this gradient tool right here, this line appears, And basically that's letting you control the direction. So if I just click and drag with the gradient tool selected, now I'm controlling the direction of the gradient. So you don't just have to go from left to right. You can go in any direction you want. And then the other thing about it is the stops here. So they have stops set up in here that you can play with the stops inside this tool itself. So you don't have to go into the actual gradient palette to adjust this. You can play on the individual stops and change the color and adjust it this way as well. So that's another way to do it. So if I use like the radial gradient, you know, it appears the same way, where you can drag out and control where that radial gradient begins and ends. And if you use it with the this last tool, there really isn't a the gradient tool itself does nothing with this third one. It's just you're clicking these dots individually. This is very much like using the mesh tool as well, but the mesh tool, you can really control it. That's basically gradients in Adobe Illustrator. You know, when you get gradients that you like, you can basically drag that swatch over into your swatch palette. And where'd it go? That's how you dragged it. Let's see. Maybe it doesn't like that kind of gradient. Let me switch to this one. Okay, I guess this last gradient here, it's the freeform one. You can't really make a swatch for it, but you can with these, with the other two, the radial and the linear gradient. So basically, once you get something you like, you can save that gradient and drag it to your swatch palette. So that's gradients in Illustrator.
How did you drag it? Where did you drag it from?
I'm just grabbing it from the fill swatch here, right into the swatch palette itself. And when you grab that, you drag it, there's a little plus sign, and you left click and drag, and then you let go, and then there it is.
Okay.
So that's the process of creating a gradient. Let me see, did Emmy show up? So any questions about gradients in Illustrator? So there's all sorts of things you can do with gradients. There's some fun things to do with typography. One of the things you can do with a gradient is to do some sort of elongated shadow. So what you can do is you can create your type, make it big. So I'm hitting Shift Control, period. Just gonna pick a nice font here. And then I'll convert it to outline. So that's using Shift Control O or Shift Command O. And then taking the type and then using the reflect tool. So underneath the rotate tool is a reflect tool. And you click and you just kind of drag. And I'm hitting Shift Alt as a drag to make a duplicate. So I made a duplicate there. So that's going to be the shadow. And then what I can do is use Skew. It's like a combination of Skew. Let's see. So I can go into Scale. And one of the things I can do is drag this out. So I'm just dragging down with hitting Shift and make it really long. And then under Scale is actually Shear is what it's called. Shear, and I can click my point there for shear. And let's see. So I'm just dragging a little bit to the left, and then I'm going to hit Scale again and kind of adjust it. And then with the type selected, I can just go ahead and pick this white to black gradient, and that's my my shadow. And what I'll do with the type too is I'll make sure the type is on top of the shadow. So I'll go into Object, Arrange, and bring the front. So it's like a kind of a quick way to do some sort of shadow effect. You know, what you would probably want to do with the type 2 is with the gradient, go to that first gradient stop where you have it set at white and just lower the opacity. So then if you have a background, it will, I just create a quick background here. So now the shadow is on top of the red, and then you can see through it. And maybe the other thing I would do too with the shadow is I would go into Window, select Transparency, and here change that to Multiply. And now it's looking much better. It's basically only showing the black pixels and not showing you the white pixels or the white gradient, white part of the gradient. That's what Multiply is doing. So that's a fun thing to do with a gradient, is to do like some sort of shadow effect. So that's one of the nice things you can do with it. So yeah, so those are gradients in Illustrator. And you know, it's the one thing to remember about the gradient that always can be a little confusing, is that with the gradient tool, the way it works is when you click on this gradient tool here, you can't change position by dragging on the line itself. You just got to like left click and drag, and that's how you change the position. So that's using gradients.
How did you get the stick again?
You just click on the gradient tool right here, and the shortcut is G. So if I hit G, I get this line.
Okay.
That's the gradient tool. Taking a quick water break. So today I want to talk about InDesign. So we're going to get into InDesign a little bit, because I want you to start combining InDesign and Photoshop together, InDesign and Illustrator together, and then eventually we'll talk about Photoshop for a little bit as well. So I have a couple things to introduce you to InDesign. And everybody has the Creative Cloud all set, right? Nobody has had any issues now. I know, Daniel, you had some issues in the beginning.
So if I already have Illustrator, can I ask them to add InDesign?
You should already have it. So I'll show you what you need to do.
I don't have it. Yeah, if you can show me, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. So let's see. So if you don't have Creative Cloud, and you're on a Windows machine or a Mac, what you can do is a couple of things you can do to make sure you get it. And one thing to do is just go to adobe.com and log in with your email and password for your account. And then here, if I click on open, it's going to go to creativecloud.adobe.com. Let me see something. Oh, I don't know what that is, but anyways, and let's say I go into any one of these, and if you want to get InDesign, just click on InDesign and then click on Get Desktop App, and that will download for you, and then you should see it as one of your Creative Cloud applications. So then if you go into, whether you're on a Windows machine or on a Mac, just gotta clean up some stuff here. Go into Windows and you'll see InDesign as one of the Adobe apps over here. And the other place to check it is when you get the Creative Cloud for the first time, it should force you to download this Adobe Creative Cloud here. And here you'll see it as well. You'll see where it says update, update, update. You'll see that the Creative Cloud is going to be an option down here as well. So you have a couple places where you can find the Creative Cloud.
They also have DX.
Yeah, so basically when you get the Creative Cloud, and this is what you got when you signed up for that deal.
I don't see DX.
Hold on one second here.
They have DW.
Yeah, if you look down, you'll see XD. So you're talking about Adobe XD, right? You might have to, what you do is you look to see what's available, but you'll see that Adobe XD is available, and it is here. I have it installed, and with me, it's right over here.
Oh yeah, okay, I see it.
So yeah, I mean, you get basically all these apps. So what you guys will need to do for this next assignment is go into your Creative Cloud app here, click on that. This window is going to open up, and then you're going to have to install InDesign through here if you haven't already done it. And I mean, you know, if you got time, install some of these other things. Install Photoshop. Has everybody installed Photoshop?
Yeah.
You know, so I would imagine you installed Photoshop. So go ahead and install InDesign as well, and just have that available to you. And that way you can work on this next assignment. So the idea behind InDesign, it's in a way, it's giving you a lot of the functionality that Illustrator has, because there's a lot of vector tools in it, but there's some additional features that you have in InDesign, and it's really meant for multi-page publishing. So documents that have multiple pages, or kind of multiple different types of content that share a theme, but they share a common design, but maybe they have different different types of layouts. So some of the features that InDesign has that Illustrator doesn't is this idea of creating frames, and Illustrator kind of has this too, but creating multiple frames, the concept of master pages. Illustrator has artboards, but InDesign basically works with pages. And then there's more you can do with the guides in InDesign. So using guides, and then how you place text, and then how you integrate with the other applications as well. So a lot of the artwork and different types of assets that you would bring into an InDesign project are going to be linked to the InDesign project. So InDesign works on the idea that you're linking everything into the actual design that you're working on, and then you can modify the artwork in Illustrator or Photoshop and then update it in InDesign. So InDesign is not the place to actually create the artwork itself, but is the place to create a layout. And you'll see that the InDesign window is basically the same as everything else in terms of menu layout and the different palettes on the side here. And a lot of the tools are similar as well. So it shares the fill and stroke type color pickers that Adobe Illustrator has. It shares that selection tool. So, and it's the same shortcut. So you have the selection tool, which is V, direct selection tool is A. But then there's some additional tools in here as well that are new. You have the type tool, the pen tool. You have two types of gradients. And you have some very similar tools. And I'm going to start to show you some of these. The V tool, the select tool is the same as Illustrator. But kind of let me kind of show you how these things work in an actual example that I have set up. So and I put this example together. So this is kind of like an example of a magazine cover in InDesign. And you have layers like you do in Illustrator. But the one thing that you have in addition to layers are pages. So if I go to Windows and Pages here, I can bring up my pages, and let's see, they're somewhere. So I have this one palette here for my pages. So in InDesign, you have documents that have multiple pages. So if you see this layout here, it's split. So on top, you have this idea called masters. So you have master pages, and then you have your actual pages down below for the layout. And you drag these master pages out, and they create a new page. So here's a document with page 1, which is the cover, and then you got page 2 and page 3. The idea behind a master page is if I click on this page here for master page, this is the master page, and then what you can do with a master page is you can add some information here to have it set up as a template. So every time you click on that page, that information will be included. So for example, let's say I want to add some information down here. Let's see, I'll add like I'll add this bit of text here called, and say, please don't share. Let's say this is like a private document of some sort. I'll scale it up. It's using the same shortcuts as Illustrator as well. So selecting text and using Shift Control period, it's going to make it bigger. So I have a little bit of text there. Now, if I go back into my pages, that bit of text appears on each page as well. So you can see it even on this page too, because this page, this A master has that A there. So if I go back, let's say I'll add to this, this rectangle. So I'm selecting the rectangle tool. I'll go into the fill and I'll give it a color. Then I'll go back and I'll select my type. Let's see. And actually, I'm going to select that rectangle I just created. I'm going to send it to back. So I'll go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And then I'll go back into these pages. And they all updated now. So now I have that Please Don't Share on each one of these. And every time I drag it out, it's there. With the master pages, you can, if you're on top here and you click on the little hamburger menu and click on New Master Page, that creates another master page. So this is master page, and the prefix is kind of the name. But now I have a B master. And if I drag that out, that's a different master page. So you can set up these master pages to have information that's going to be repeated. When you create an InDesign document for the first time, you go to File, and you go to New Document. It opens up this new document window, and it's kind of the same document window that opens up in Illustrator and Photoshop. But you have a couple options here for the types of documents you create. So all this information here is giving you the type of document. And you do have templates. You got a print template and a web template. But it's not like Illustrator where if I click on web, it's going to give me RGB. And if I in Illustrator, if I click on print, it will give me CMYK colors. It's not even thinking about that. It's only thinking about the actual dimensions and the other aspects of those dimensions. So here under print, the first thing you're going to see is the units are set to picas. So what a pica is a type of measurement in graphic design. And I don't know if I explained this to you in the very beginning of the class, but every inch has 6 picas, and then there's 6 points into a pica. So you have 6 picas to an inch, and then if I change that to points, you have 72 points to an inch. Actually, there's 12 points in a pica. So there's 6 picas an inch and 12 points to a pica. So you basically have the point is the smallest value, and the pica is the larger value. And this number that comes after this, P, is a point value. So you say 6P, you can say 6P10. That's the same thing as saying 6 picas plus 10 points. But you can change this too. Points and picas were a measurement standard that's been used in graphic design for a while, but you can also use inches as well. So you can just use inches as well, and that converts it for you. So if I say 12 inches and I change it to picas, it's saying 72 picas, let's see, and 864 points. So those are measurements for points and picas, but you can start off with inches too. And then you have the number of pages. So you can say how many pages you want to have in the document to start with. So it could be like a 6-page document. And then what facing pages is when you create that document for the first time, you can get a book type format where you actually have a left and a right page set up. Primary text frame will create a text frame for you right when you create the document. And I'll show you how to create text frames in a minute here. And then with InDesign, you have guides that you can use, but you also have types of guides that are particular to page layout, and you have columns. So columns are guides that go from top to bottom. They're vertical guides, and when you set your columns, they're going to be equally spaced. So if you have 3 columns, you're going to have columns equally spaced, basically with 2 guides separating the columns themselves. And then you have this concept of a gutter, and the gutter is basically the space in between your columns. So you set up your columns, and then you have margins, and you can set up your margins as well. If you open up Bleed and Slug, this is something that's standard in print. So if you're going to print on a printing press, a bleed is basically parts of the document that extend beyond the viewable area of the document itself. And the idea with a bleed is, on a printing press, you can't print right to the edge. We basically extend beyond that edge, and then you cut the bleed off after that document comes off the press. So that's something that you would use if you're printing on a printing press, to include a bleed. And the slug is basically information that extends beyond the actual document itself, where you can add your name, the date the document's created. Printers add like a color code on there as well. So I can add like a 1/4 inch bleed. And then when you add one measurement here, you click on the chain and it adds it to all. So you have 1/4 inch all the way around. If I click on the chain like this here, and then I can say, let's say on the bottom, I want a 1 inch slug. Then it adds it all the way around. So if I hit preview here, you'll see what the document looks like. So this is what my document looks like. So the actual size is 11 by 12 inches. And then if I click on in the pages palette here, I can't do it now. I have to create it first. But you'll see the spread set up. But I have 3 columns. They're separated by a gutter, and that gutter is 0.16 inches. I have my margins, and then the red line is my bleed, and the blue line is my slug. For now, we don't really need to use the bleed and the slug, so I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to set it both to 0. And then I'm also going to change my width to 8.5. I'm going to keep the pages set up with 6 pages so you can see what a spread looks like. But when we do this first assignment, this is the layout that I want you to use. And we'll talk about the assignment in a little bit, but I want you to use a 3-column setup with a 1/4 inch margin. And then gutters, it doesn't really matter to me how wide you make the gutters, but usually they're less than the margin itself. So let's say an 1/8 of an inch for the gutters. Now I'm going to hit create though, so you can kind of see what this is. And then I'm going to go into a spread. Oh, Emmy, are you here? I see you here, Emmy. You made it. So, okay, great. I see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the spread, if I double click on this, this is what a spread looks like. So the idea with InDesign is you have your cover, and then you have your internal spreads. And then you have that last page is the back of the one side of the spread there. So basically a book setup. And then when you have a spread too, your master, every time you add a master page down, it appears like that. So if you're going to do like a brochure, a book, like a trifold brochure too, this is what you would want to use. This is kind of like the style that you want to use. For our assignment though, I just want you to use standard 8.5 by 11. So here, under new document, I can also go into print. I can pick a letter size. I'll just make this inches so I can see the actual measurements. And then 3 columns, and then 0.25 for your margins. Put 0.25 in there, and then it updates everywhere as long as that chain is one solid chain link, and I hit create. So this is basically the layout of InDesign. And when you want to create content in InDesign, you're basically right off the bat going to use the type tool. There's not a lot of tools in here to actually draw. You do have a pen tool, but you're going to bring in most of your images directly from Illustrator or Photoshop. And I'll show you how that works. When you use the type tool, you have your guide set up. So I'm just going to add a column here. And it's not like Illustrator, where in Illustrator, if I click on my type tool, it immediately, if I click and drag on my type tool, it fills it with, and I have to decrease the font size so you see this. It fills the box with this lorem ipsum dummy text. So InDesign doesn't do that like Illustrator is doing it. There is an option though where you go into type and say fill with placeholder text, and it kind of does the same thing. But right off the bat, it doesn't do it. If you do fill it with placeholder text, I'll go back to type and fill it with placeholder text. And then I'm going to take the text and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. So what happens with InDesign is you get this little box here, and it's a little box with the red box with a plus sign. You click on that, and then your cursor changes, and it looks like a little page, and then it has a bunch of text in there, and then you click and drag that, and it lets you basically flow the text from one box to the next. So now if I keep on cutting and pasting, you see how the text is flowing? And then whenever you have text that kind of overfills the box, this little box appears, and you just basically control click on it and drag again to get another column of text flowing. So that's kind of how the type tool works. You create frames and you fill it with text. Now to get an image into InDesign, you can do it a couple different ways. If you go and do like an image search, and let me see. So like I have this cat face here. I'm just gonna, and I did a search for cats in Google in the images. I'm going to copy the image, and you can paste it right into InDesign like that. So I just copied and pasted an image in there. So that's how you basically bring images in. So you can copy and paste. As you add your images to InDesign, you go to Windows, and there's a links box here. Now, if you add an image like this into InDesign, it's being basically embedded into the document, and that's probably not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to have your images in a central location. So I'm going to take this image and I'm going to save it, and I'll just save it onto my desktop, and I'll call it cat, save. And then when I go into InDesign, I can go to edit, and actually, let's see. let's see here. Go to edit place. So you go to edit place or Control D, and then you find that artwork. And then it appears as a miniature thumbnail with a little icon. It looks like a little mountain icon. And then when you have it set like this, what you can do is you can drag it and it will drag up proportionally. And then you can kind of use those guides to snap it to where you want it to be. So this way you're kind of using the guides that you set up for your columns as a way to place your image. And the idea behind InDesign with columns, it kind of reflects the notion that there's a grid existing behind everything you do. And if you use the columns as a way to think about your page layout, then you're going to get a more uniform, kind of more pleasing design in your work versus, you know, taking something and kind of placing it anywhere. So the columns are supposed to help ensure that the layout aesthetically has a nice flow and a nice sense of balance to it. Now, when you add the image, and basically, let's see, image is a little link icon. So you see that link icon? So what that basically means is that that image is linked into InDesign itself. And if I right click on this, I have all these options. And one of these options is edit with, and you can say edit with Photoshop. So we'll talk about editing some of these images in Photoshop in another class. But basically what you do is you can edit the art in Photoshop and then it updates in InDesign itself. So the art is linked to the document. And that's important to know because when you, let's say, take this InDesign document and open it up on another computer, if the linked artwork is not there, then the link will be broken. And basically you'll only get a low resolution image if you decide to print that project. So as you're bringing images into InDesign, you want to make sure that everything is linked properly. And in the links palette is where you'll see things are linked to that document. One of the things you can do is I'm going to delete this cat. You can use the shortcut Control D to place artwork. But what I'm going to do is okay, I have all these pieces of artworks here. Let me see. I got to be careful about what I select here. Okay, I'm going to select that. I'm going to Control click, select something else. Control click this. So I Control click 3 different things, and they're all selected because they're highlighted. And then I hit open. And what you can do now, there's a number. So I don't know if you can see it, but it says 3. And since I clicked on 3 things, if I drag that out once, it's 1 image. If I drag that out again, I'll try to use my guides. That's the 2nd image. And then I drag that out again, it's my 3rd image. And that's pretty cool because I could have like 100 images and I hit Control D once, and then I can just start adding all these images to my InDesign document. So it just makes that whole process of adding images really fast. So that's one of the nice features of InDesign. And then I have, you know, images set up and I can start working on my layout. Now, one of the things about the frames is if you select something with your frame and you want to make that image bigger and you drag that corner, well, you're only dragging the frame. You're not dragging the artwork in the frame. So the artwork and the frame are almost 2 separate things. If you want to scale up your artwork, you can click on that direct selection tool and then scale it. But that's scaling the artwork inside the frame and not the frame itself. So now I'm scaling the artwork, but now I'm just scaling it inside the frame. So you can scale up your artwork in the frame, or you can scale up the frame. And then if I select the artwork and I hit E, that's going to be my transform, and that's going to scale up the frame and the artwork together. So that's kind of important to think about. What happens a lot of times is you want to make your art bigger, and you select your direct selection tool, and you grab a corner here and you try to make it bigger, but nothing's bigger, just the frame. So you just got to remember that direct selection is V, the selection tool is making the frame bigger. Direct selection tool is making the content inside the frame bigger. And then if you use selection and then go to transform, that's making both the frame and the content bigger at the same time. So that's important to remember. Any questions so far? So what I want you guys to do now for this first assignment is create a document. And I guess the first step is really to download InDesign and make sure you have it through the Creative Cloud, download it, and then create a new document, 8.5 by 11, 1/4 inch margins all the way around in that new document dialog that you saw, 3 columns and a gutter, and this is the gutter. If you ever want to change any of this stuff, you can go to layout and you go to margins and columns, and then you can change your margins and columns here. And preview is already turned on. So if I want to have 5 columns, that's 5 columns. If I want to change my gutter, make it more narrow, I can make it more narrow. So I can adjust like that under layout, margins, and columns. You also have regular ruler guides too, just like you do in Illustrator. So I can drag these out as well. You also have this create guides option, and that's kind of cool too, because it lets you add additional columns and it lets you add rows, and you can give the gutters the rows too. And if you can decide to add it within the margins or within the page. Now I have like a grid type layout here in InDesign. So you got that ability to change your guides and your columns. So let me talk about this assignment, and then we can kind of go over more features, and you can kind of see how, let's see. How this was created. So for this assignment, basically I want you to think about creating a magazine cover. And the magazine cover can be for 2 different types of publications. So I'm giving you an option to choose between like a how-to magazine or a tabloid style magazine. So here are the parameters that I want to give you for this. And I'll post this after the class. And I think it's assignment number
7.
7. Okay, yeah, 7. So use InDesign to create the cover of a magazine. Subject of the magazine, you got 2 choices. A how-to magazine. So basically a how-to magazine is like, in my example here, it's like a magazine about car repair, but you can make a how-to art magazine or a how-to cooking magazine. So you have how-to, or your other option is a sensationalistic tabloid. And you guys know what I mean by sensationalistic tabloid? They're not as common with the internet, but
With the National Enquirer?
yeah, exactly. Like National Enquirer. This is a sensationalistic, or the Globe. There's a Not that glow. It features one of the Bat Boy tabloid cover is really famous, you know, so just like world news. So that's sensationalistic. So both are a little different, but the idea behind both is use a background photograph, have, oops, something weird happened. Okay, oops, sorry about that.
When I was a kid, I used to call them the John Bonet magazines.
The what?
John Bonet magazines?
Wait, what'd you call it, Charles?
The John Bonet magazines.
Oh yeah, because was she the one that? Oh, she wasn't the well. Oh yeah, yeah, that's kind of tragic. Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
She's still being covered to this day. Like I go to the grocery stores and still see content about her.
Oh really? Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of, you know, goofy news covers, you know. But the idea is you're going to have like background image. Well, 24-hour fitness opening back up. Anyway, a background image, and then you're going to have a header, a subheader, and then a call to action. And the call to action is something that you can create. Actually, I want to get rid of this. And then I'll show you the process for this now. And then let me look in back here. Call to action, some additional text in there. I want you to use two fonts. I should say two different fonts. And then come up with a color palette of like five colors. You know, using something like Adobe's color tool. You know, what you saw with Illustrator from the class before we went on spring break, we talked about color themes. So our color palette, the design, this call to action idea, like the call today here, I want you to make that in Illustrator and copy and paste it into this InDesign document, because you can actually modify the vectors in InDesign, which is kind of nice. So this came from Illustrator, but I can still select those vectors here. You know, select something here and change the color. So you can do that. And then I want you to come up with your idea first by sketching it. So come up with that sketch first. And I'll show you this as the sketch. So I came up with this sketch here. So I don't know if you can see that good. Got to move this up. So,
This InDesign?
well, here's my sketch.
No, but what's Camp Shop?
Oh, the window?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is, I'm using my down shooter so you can see the sketch. So I want you to come up with a sketch first, and then we'll look over the sketches on Thursday, and then the actual assignment itself will be due on April 30th. So we'll talk more about the process of using InDesign. But this is a sketch I came up with. So after I came up with the sketch, I started to design my layout based on the sketch. So with the sketch, I have, you know, the header, the image, and the call to action here. And then I have another text box underneath shop that said good advice. So a subheader underneath. But kind of let me show you the process. So I will basically go in here and unclick my layers first. So I have a background here. And when you create this in InDesign, you have layers. So if you go into Window Layers, you have your Layers palette. And the layers palette is a little different than Illustrator. You can't really control the size of the layers in InDesign. So you really only have two options. You have this one option here, and then you have an even tinier option. I prefer to not use small panels so I can at least see what I'm doing. But the layers work in a similar way. If you click on this little box here, it will select that whole layer. Now, when you start to add stuff in InDesign, what it's going to look like is going to be this. This is what it actually looks like initially. So you're going to add things that extend beyond the actual document itself. It's going beyond the canvas size of that document. Now, I brought this image in by doing a search and cutting and pasting. And when you do it like that, you cut and paste directly into InDesign. You do not see anything in the links palette. And basically, it's just cutting and pasting a low resolution image in here. The real way to do this would be to actually save out an image. So I'm going to kind of search for another mechanic image here. And the thing about my layout, though, if you look back at my layout, I kind of have it set up where the mechanic is to the left, and then you have the mechanic kind of in one column, and then to the right is the text. So I'm trying to balance the image with the text. So the two columns kind of contain the text, and the one column contains the mechanic. So I'm going to go back in here and find an image that reflects that. Let's see. So let's see. Like right here, like this guy. So that kind of reflects the look that I'm going for. So I'm going to just right click, and you're kind of using some artwork that's probably copyrighted, which is not recommended in reality, but here for the assignment, it's okay. And I'm going to save that image as, and I am going to save it to my desktop. And one thing you want to look out for, though, is the file format. So that WEBP is a special Google image format. So that image probably won't be the best one. Let me see if I can find. Let me see what she said at. So I'm going to go in here, save image as. So that's a JPEG. So that's better. So you want to look for JPEGs or PNGs when you're doing this. So I'm just going to replace him with the female mechanic. So placing the image, you go to Edit, Place. Go to Edit, Place. Or you can hit Control-D. And find that image. And there's the, let's see. I don't know where I saved her. So let me go back. Let me make sure I save her in a good spot. So I'm going to save her. Saving her again here. Okay. So I'm going to go back, Control-D. Find Mechanic 2, which is her image. Oh, there you go. And then what I'll do here is I'm going to just have my direct selection tool to select it, hit E, and shift drag to scale her up. So she's filling out the frame. And I'm just thinking about how this works compositionally. I want her in this first column. Yours is going to be different, so you don't have to follow this. That's just how my sketch was. And when we look at the sketches on Thursday, we'll talk about how you're thinking about layout and balance and proportion. But this works. Now she extends beyond the document. If you want to see what the document would look like if it was actually printed, you go to View, you can go to Screen Mode, and you click Preview. And that's what it's going to look like when it's printed. So I like where she's positioned. So I'm going to go back now and just go back into normal. So I have her set up on a layer all by herself. So once you have the background image set, lock it down. So hit the lock icon so it's locked. And you don't have to worry about it, because a lot of times when you're selecting things, you can accidentally select on a layer that you don't want to unless you lock it. So just make sure you lock it. So I'm going to actually, I have a gradient set there. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of everything and kind of start from scratch here. So my next, I have 4 layers set up here. So you'll have to create these layers. You can double click on the layer and rename it. So I'm going to call the second layer gradient. Banner is fine for this one, and text is all my text. I'll create another layer and I'll call this one call to action. So this is the call to action artwork that I would create in Illustrator. First, I'll go into banner. So I just want to take care of this white space up here. So what I'll do for now is just create a rectangular box. So I'm going to click on the rectangular box here, drag that out, double click on the fill, and just fill it with a color. And then I'm going to lock that down, and then I'm going to work on my text. So here I'm going to add a header. So basically what I'm doing with the type tool is I'm just left clicking and dragging to create that rectangle. And then I'm going to create my text. So my text was the words the and then shop. And you can barely see it. I'll zoom in. I'll hit Control A, and then I'll hit Shift Control period here, or greater than symbol, and I'll make that type bigger. The way I had it set up was the word the was smaller, so I'm going to hit Shift Control less than symbol, or Shift Control comma, make that smaller, and make the word shop bigger. Now, if you make it too big, it's going to extend beyond that text box that you initially created. So you're going to have to increase the size of the text box so you can see that type again, because it's there still, it didn't go away. It's just that the text box is too small to contain it. So this is where you can use the direct selection tool. You can hit A just like in Illustrator. And then what you have to do is select that text box and grab the bottom stroke here of the text box, and you should be able to basically click once and shift and drag down, and then it opens up a little bit. And I think I changed my type, so I'm going to click the shop again, and that will let you see that type that was hidden down below. If I click on that and drag up, type goes away. If I direct select on the bottom of the box and drag down, the type comes back. So you make your type so big that it extends beyond the text box. You just have to make the text box bigger. So I have my type here. I want to change the font. So I'm using this font in this example called Acumen Pro. So it's just a sans serif font. And then what I want to do now is adjust the spacing in between each line of text. So that is called your leading. And you'll find your leading in the control bar that goes across the top of InDesign. So it's kind of like Illustrator. If you don't see that control bar up here, just go to Window and click Control. So the control bar in InDesign has a lot more information than the control bar in Illustrator. and actually it has two separate contexts. If you hit A, these are all the controls for just characters for your text. If you hit paragraph symbol, these are all the controls for paragraph related stuff. So it's a lot more information up here. You have properties like you have in Illustrator as well, but the control bar that goes horizontally, it's been the standard for a long time, so it's actually a lot easier to see information going across when it's all the way on top than it is with this properties palette. And sometimes the properties palette is just not around. So I like how the control bar horizontally is set so you can access information right away. Well, what I want to do here is I want to decrease the leading. So right here in the control bar, you have your font, and then next to it is your font size. And this right here is your leading. So if I select one of these numbers here, it will decrease that leading. And then I can modify the spacing by clicking the up and down arrows here. So the leading is the amount of space in points. So it's always set to points. If your font size, let's say, is a certain size, like 100 points here, then your leading has to be a high number as well to give you enough space. So now I have the and the shop. The last thing I want to do, though, is maybe make the shop even bigger. So I'll make it bigger. I'll adjust it a little bit. But I want to change more aspects of the letters here. So if you go to Windows, you also have a character palette here. And here it is right here. So there's more information in this character palette. You have more options here that you do. Well, you could probably find some of these options going across the top as well. But you have, let's see something. Oh, there's one thing I want to do that. I want to change this. I want to change the Acumen to this. I want to show you something with the character palette. So I want to change the font from Acumen to Acumen Variable. When I do that, I get this little icon in the character palette. So there's these special kind of fonts in InDesign that are variable fonts. And if I click on that, I get this width and weight. And basically, I can increase the width and the weight of that to customize that font a little bit. So that's a cool little feature. Not all fonts can do this, but it's this icon right here. And then I just want to adjust maybe the point size of the. No, that was good. Just changing the weight to black, and then I'll increase the leading. So this is my title for this magazine cover, and then I'm going to change that fill color for the text to so when you highlight your text, the fill and stroke change in InDesign, you get a T. That's the fill of the characters, and then you have the outlines of the characters too, which is usually set to none. It looks better when it's set to none instead of giving it an outline color. But if you double click on the T now I can change the actual text itself like that. And I want to get the in there too. So now I have the text for on top here for my header. Now there's this feature where you have this frame, and I actually want my text to be centered. So I can move the box like this, so it just fits within the width of the text. And then you can also go to Object, and you can go into Fitting and say Fit Frame to Content, and it basically brings the bottom part of the box up, and now you have this frame that's fitting that box of text a little bit better. And then I can go on top here into my control palette, click center, but make sure you have center set to align to page. So if I click that icon here, click center, and now it's nicely centered. So I have text here, and I want you to add more text, for a call to action type information as well. I want you to have a subheader. So like, this would be, just making it a little bit smaller. Subheader here, and I'll close this up. And I'll do that frame to content option again by going into fitting frame to content. And now I'll center that as well. And then I do a lot of nudging with my arrow keys in InDesign too to get the spacing right. So I just want to talk about this call to action part now. So I'll lock down my text. I'm going to delete that for now. I have a call to action layer that I created. I'm going to go back into Illustrator. And I created this, this call to action. So I want you to create your own that makes sense with the topic that you're creating. So I'm using the wrenches. So I had an image of a wrench, and I used image trace on it. And then I added my text in Illustrator, and I converted that text to outlines. And so I'm going to grab all of this with my direct selection tool in Illustrator. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go into InDesign, and I'm going to paste it. And what's cool about copying and pasting from Illustrator into InDesign is that when you do that, that information is not going inside a frame like this artwork is. It's existing as vectors. So because of that, I can use my direct selection tool now, and I can select on these individual characters. I'll hit Shift. And then I'll double click on my swatch here. Change the color, and then I guess I didn't select on all of them. I'm going to select on this one. This time I'll use my eyedropper. Just click on those characters. Now the eyedropper works a little bit differently. It gives you basically more colors to choose from, and then you should be able to grab these colors out of these little, like this color swatch here, and drag it like this. But what the eyedropper is doing in InDesign is basically if I when you select multiple colors here, I think you have to click on this, like, let's see. Every time you click on something, you have to hit Alt, and you click on the color you want to add. And it adds it to this, and then you can add these to your swatches by clicking on that little icon. But with the vectors now in Illustrator, I can select these vectors and change the colors of each part of this in InDesign. And then once you're set up with design, again, you want to view it, you go to View, you go into Preview, and then you see what it looks like. So things may be hard to read. So InDesign has gradients just like Illustrator does. So I have this gradient layer set up, and what I'll do is add a white gradient. So if you create a frame or use the rectangle tool, so click on rectangle, drag a box out here, and then click on that gradient, and then drag inside that box, it creates your gradient. Here it's defaulting to black to white, but if I go into window, see, and let's see, go into color and then select gradients. I get a similar dialog that I got in Illustrator, but I really only have two options. I have radial and I have linear. But if I click on these little boxes down below, that's where I can change the number of gradients, gradient colors, by clicking on these little boxes here. But I can't change opacity here. But there's another tool under the gradient tool called the gradient feather tool. And then if I do that and drag inside, depending on the direction I go, that's where I can change opacity. And with something like this, you can drag in any direction. And now I can see that call to action a little bit better because now I have that gradient on top. One thing they have to fix with these letters is the outline. So I'm just going to select on DMA and go into the stroke here and make it black. So right now I'm using a gradient as a background on top of the background to make the call to action a little bit more readable. So that's kind of the idea for this assignment now, is just to introduce you to InDesign. Once you do this type of layout, what we'll talk about now is fixing the background, let's say, and getting rid of a background. And that will be more of a Photoshop lesson that I'll get into on Thursday. But what you can do now is if I have my artwork here and I go into my links palette and I right click, I can go into right click, brings up this menu. I can say edit with Photoshop. And then that artwork opens here in Photoshop. Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign all together. I think my internet is acting a little funny. Okay, so my internet was acting funny, but we'll talk about how we can start to use Photoshop with InDesign and Illustrator. But I'm going to create a mask real quick. I need my tools here, which I lost. Oh. So here's my toolbar, and I'm just going to use this object selection tool really quick. This is a new tool in Photoshop. It's pretty cool where you just kind of drag over something. Like I've dragged over the female here, and it recognized her form right away. And then I can go into my layers in Photoshop, and you don't need to know all of this now because this is like a lot. I just want you to focus on InDesign. But I can go into layers here, and I can click on this little icon here and mask out the background. It's not like a perfect mask, so I would have to fix it. But if I save this, in here it's saving it as a Photoshop document. So I'm going to save this in my desktop up here, hit save. Then I'm going to go back into InDesign go into my links palette, right click, but I'm going to hit relink. And now I'm going to go here and find that Photoshop document, hit open, and then it automatically knows that it had a mask there and it got rid of that background for me. And then I'll add another layer in InDesign, bring it to the very bottom by left clicking and dragging, create another rectangle. But this time, click on the fill for that. Fill it with color. And now I have the mask, and now I have a nice fill for that background. So we'll talk about masking, but this would help me create a more readable cover because the type doesn't have to compete with the image if I can mask out portions of that. And one of the things you can actually do is you can go into InDesign now, duplicate a layer, but in the duplicate, I have two images here. And what I can do is, in this background layer here, I'm going to turn off that original. Let's see. I'm going to hit Control D. I'm going to bring back that first mechanic image. I'm going to hit E to kind of scale it up. So I'm just kind of placing it to match the one on top. And for this duplicate, I'm going to go into Window, and I'm going to go into Transparency. So if I go into, let's see,
The crash bar.
can you guys hear me still?
Yeah, but this is too much for only the first assignment.
Yeah, this is extra. I'm just showing you something extra. You don't have to do this part. So this is extra. I'm going to show you more of this on Thursday. So I don't expect you guys to do this. You don't have to worry about masking anything. So just stick to the type and the background image, and then create something in Illustrator like this. But it can be super simple too. And I'll show you some different ideas for calls to action. Here I have this background image, and basically all I want to do is decrease the transparency so it fades it out a little bit. So it's just fading it out a little bit so you can add type on top. But you don't have to worry about this this aspect of it. So I'm just going to delete this. And I'm going to hit undo. So don't worry about the masking. You don't have to do anything in Photoshop. So all you need to do is bring in this image for the background. So I want one photo for the background, and then everything else is going to be type and just one vector. I'm calling this a call to action. So a call to action can be different things. So in Illustrator, really the simplest thing to be for a call to action would be like a starburst design or something, even just in a circle. You know, create a circle, and then inside the circle you have text. Call now, or any type of little extra message that is exciting for the person reading the magazine. So, oops.
So with the picture covering the whole page, the first page, what happened to the column and gutter?
Okay, what was the question?
You know how like we brought a picture that covered the whole page? What happened to the column and gutter?
Oh, it's still there, so I'll show you. So, yeah, I'm just gonna. So if you look back in InDesign, this view here is set to preview. So to get the column and gutter back, just click on normal. And they're there. So when you start InDesign for the first time, it's going to be set up. If I go to File, New, create a document, have columns in here, hit Create. It's already set up what's called normal mode. And then if you want to see what it looks like without the columns, you go to View, and you go into Screen Mode, and you go into Preview. So does anybody have any questions about creating the InDesign document and setting up columns and your text boxes? Any questions about that? You guys understand what I want you to do for this assignment? Say yes or no in the participant thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's fairly simple. It's just an intro. But what you can do first is...
Can I ask something?
Yeah, of course.
So when we bring in the picture, is it gonna go beyond the columns, beyond the borders of both sides where the indents like is on both sides?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. So see how it's going, the picture itself is going beyond the document?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem.
But then how is it gonna cut to fit the page?
The idea with InDesign in a print project is you would have a bleed and you would have, an actual die cut the paper. So if anything extended beyond the document size, then it would be cut off. So basically, if you have a document size that's set to 8.5 by 11 when you create the new document, that's the size of the document, but you could still extend things off of the page. It's just when you print that document, it's not going to print what's extended off the page because your page is only 8.5 by 11. It's going to print what you see under screen mode preview. So basically, all that information that extends beyond the actual document size goes away.
So preview will take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, preview would take care of it. Down below in your toolbar in InDesign, preview is actually set here as well. So you can do it down here as well. So you got normal and you got preview. And the keyboard shortcut is W. So if you click W as you're working, you can switch between the normal mode, which is the mode that you design in, so you can see your columns and your gutters and your margins, and preview mode, which shows you everything without the columns and the gutters and the margins. So W is that shortcut.
Thank you.
Yep. So what you guys can do is, what I want you to do first is like sketch out your concept, and we'll kind of do it the same way that we did it for like the restaurant logos, where I said sketch it out first and let's talk about it, and then figure out what you want to do. So for next week, just create a sketch just like this, just so you can see it better. So I just want to sketch, I kind of lay it out 8.5 by 11. I have my columns in here set up, and I just do it just like that. So we'll look over the sketches, and then we'll talk about the design and how you're balancing the type with the image. And then for next week, you'll just complete the actual tabloid cover. And then we'll start to talk more about integrating Photoshop a little bit, but not too much. I just want you to know how to make a mask in Photoshop. We're not going to get into Photoshop that deeply. Because what I want you to work on after this cover is what's going to be called an integrated campaign. And the idea is, after this assignment, is to use InDesign and Illustrator together to create a campaign for like a product or a person, but to have different sized elements. So you would have your poster, and then maybe your Instagram post and a postcard, all sharing the same type of branding that you're using for the whole campaign itself. Well, we'll talk about that not this week, but next week. The idea with the integrated campaign is you start to think about your print and your web type elements and how you can create one design and extend it for all the different pieces in the campaign. So that will be next week. So that's really all I want to talk about today. Any questions? And I know you guys have handed in most of your assignments now, so we'll go over the restaurant logos that you created on Thursday. We'll do like a critique. We'll start the class off with like a little critique. And then I want to look at your sketches for this magazine cover project. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some other features in InDesign. But I just want you to use the basics for now. Use layers, use the type tool, use the rectangle tool, and then use your select tools to move things around, to organize things. And yeah, so that's about it. So that's all I got to say for tonight, really. Questions? Anything else from you guys?
What was the name of the Illustrator extension again?
Oh, the very beginning?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I already forgot.
It's from
Overlord. It's called Overlord.
Overload.
Overlord, okay.
Which is like, yeah, it's kind of, that's a little bit more fun than designing a magazine cover. But I want you to learn InDesign. Well, I'll actually do a little bit of animation towards the end of this class, but I want you to kind of learn more about InDesign first before we get into the animation project. So, yeah, but that was called Overlord. Any other questions?
Hey Joe, I needed your help with the last touch with my project, the logo one. Do you want to do a separate, I mean like a private?
Yeah, let's do that separately.
Okay.
Did anybody have any questions about like previous assignments or anything? Oh, one last thing is, remember how I told you I'll create a font for you? So has anybody taken any of their images from the previous assignments and kind of set it up so you can make a font? Remember how we did that on the day before spring break using FontSelf? So does anybody want to do that? Because if you want to do that, I'll give you extra credit. You just have to go into your previous assignments and clean up some of the vector artwork a little bit. So
when will we be able to turn that in?
Basically anytime you want. So
okay.
Yeah, so that's just like an extra thing. There's no deadline for it. Just, take your artwork, clean it up, and you want to create basically 26 little images, and I'll turn it into a font.
Okay.
But if, you know, you got to do a little bit of cleaning of the artwork so they're not too complicated. You know, you
Yeah.
might simplify a couple things. Yeah. So okay. So that's all I have for tonight then. So I'll make sure you guys get this recording, and then I'll, you know, the thing you want to probably just kind of review in the video is the process for creating this document. So what I'll do is I'll put bookmarks inside the video, so you can kind of go straight to the part of the video, so you don't have to watch the whole thing over again. So there'll be a bookmark for create InDesign document, create layers, use the type tool, and add the background image, basically.
So they're gonna be different links or under one link?
It'll be in the description for the YouTube video. There'll be a paragraph, and in that paragraph of text will be links that will actually take you to the different points of the video timeline. You click on the link, and it will go straight to that part of the video. So instead of, you know, I've been talking for 2 hours, right? So instead of watching 2 hours of a video, you can just go straight to what you need to know for the assignment. And then I'll post the assignment in the assignments tonight after class.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. So I think that's it for tonight. So just have sketches ready for Thursday, and we'll be good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, guys.
Bye.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.